Arkansas, which is a state dominated by Republican lawmakers, recently passed a law creating a voucher program for schools. And a new report reveals that just in the first few months of the program going live, thousands of students have spent millions of taxpayer dollars to attend mostly religious private schools. And many of those students were already in private schools to begin with, making their use of taxpayer dollars an unnecessary drain on the minimal resources currently available to public schools throughout the state. That is the takeaway from the first annual Education Freedom Account report given to the Arkansas legislature. If you don't follow education policy, you should listen to what they are doing in Arkansas, because you can bet that other states, especially red states, will do this sort of thing if they haven't already. Basically, Republicans want to funnel money to private religious schools, but they can't just do that. So instead, they talk about the importance of choice. Parents deserve a choice about where their kids go to school. Alexa Henning, who is the communications director for Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said this program offers families, quote, the chance to choose the school that best suits their individual needs and helping every student have access to a quality education. It's the only time you will hear conservatives celebrating choice. But the new report about the EFA basically gives away the game. The critics were right all along. This is nothing more than a giveaway to primarily Christian schools. And before I get into the numbers, I will readily admit that some public schools are struggling. They don't have the resources they need to help every child. They don't pay teachers well. The buildings are decrepit, and the opportunities for kids are minimal. But the solution then is for the state to invest more money and more resources in these schools, not siphoning away the little they have and directing that cash to private schools. That helps the rich and the religious more than everyone else. And the numbers we now have back up that theory. 95% of the students enrolled in the EFA program, the report says, previously attended a private school, or they're beginning their formal education as kindergartners. In the first case, that means their parents or their schools were already paying for their education before the EFA program went into effect. They had the money to pay the bills. They don't need taxpayer help. And in the second case, that means parents who might have sent their kids to a public school are now sending their kids to a private school instead. Probably a religious one. We are talking 1,500 students who are now going to go to mostly private religious schools at taxpayer expense. Each kid is getting thousands of dollars to use at those schools for tuition and other needs. In fact, of the 24 schools that enrolled the most EFA participants, 21 of them are religiously affiliated. The bottom line is that this program is just a massive taxpayer-funded gift to families whose kids were largely already attending or planning to attend private religious schools. As of this video, $7.1 million has already been spent on this program. By the end of the school year, an estimated $32.5 million will be spent on the program. Before this law went into effect, Arkansas had a program offering these options to students with disabilities, foster children, military families, and a few other groups. I get that. You can make a strong case that those students need public resources and extra help, and maybe they can find it at private schools. But the new EFA program this year is now open to those groups as well as first-time kindergartners. Within the next couple of years, the program will expand to everyone else who wants to participate. That means even more money will be given to families that can probably already afford private schools, but apparently want to help Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her Republican allies destroy public education, intentionally or not. It's the same story in every place that passes these kinds of voucher programs. Advocates continuously lie about school choice, which sounds nice, because they know it's ultimately a huge benefit for Christian schools in particular. As Democratic State House candidate David McAvoy pointed out, this program will soon, quote, become an expensive subsidy for wealthier families at the expense of everyone else. It should go without saying that private religious schools, by definition, indoctrinate children in faith, sometimes teaching blatant lies about science and history in the name of Jesus. Why are they being rewarded for that by taxpayers? Those schools are not necessarily held accountable for students' education either, and there's far less oversight of what they do. Hell, the schools don't even have to be accredited yet in order to participate in the EFA program. All they've really agreed to do is give students a standardized test at some point, but that doesn't mean those kids won't be taught faith-based misinformation. Plus, while the state must be transparent about where the funds are going, which is why we're getting this new report, the schools receiving the funding don't have to publicly document how they're spending the cash. As another Democratic lawmaker pointed out, public schools educate over 90% of students in Arkansas, but now they will be forced to compete for public tax dollars against private schools that don't have to follow the same rules. Now, you might be wondering how voucher receiving kids do compared to their public school counterparts, which is a great question, but it's too early to answer that just yet. It's worth keeping an eye on in years to come. By the way, the EFA is part of the much larger LEARNS Act. It doesn't matter what it stands for. And supporters of the bill would say, we're not hurting public education. In fact, the law requires public schools to give teachers a base salary of $50,000, up from the pathetic $36,000 it used to be. Teachers who already make more than $50,000 are eligible for a $10,000 bonus, depending on what they teach and where they teach it. And all of that is pretty good, I admit that. But the law also demolishes the old system, which many states use for good reason, which rewarded teachers for experience and education. The way you used to get paid as a teacher in Arkansas was dependent on how many years you were in the classroom and your highest level of formal education. Just find your salary on the chart. Now that's gone. Now it's up to your district to figure out what to do. And if they want to combine the old system with the new minimum guarantees required by the state, they could be on the hook for millions of dollars that the state is not giving them. Look, even if you didn't follow what I just said, what that means is that the districts with a lot of well-educated, highly experienced teachers may not be able to pay them what they are worth, which means those teachers may move out of state. It also means smaller public school districts will struggle even more than they already are. That's why the voucher element of the new law just adds insult to injury. Vouchers have always been a gift for families that want to send their kids to private Christian schools, and this latest version of the program is just more proof that Republicans are happy to take vital funding out of public schools if they can re-gift it to a bunch of wealthier religious families. As one critic noted, it would be far more sensible for Arkansas to use public funds by investing in public schools. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders and her GOP allies have no desire to do that. It's why you should never elect that party to positions of power.